Joining us today to talk about developments with vaping in the U.S. is Michelle Minton, Senior Fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. Michelle, good to see you again today.
Thanks for having me on again.
So let's talk specifically about the U.S. What is going on now that the Biden administration has got, getting close to 100 day, first 100 days?
Yeah, right now, it's all pretty quiet on the Western Front, so to speak. But we have the USPS vape mail ban, which is going to go into effect at the end of next month. And not just USPS, but voluntarily FedEx, UPS, DHL have all chosen to stop shipping tobacco products, including vape products, even if it has no nicotine in it, even if it has no liquid in it. And we're already seeing vape companies, the biggest vape companies like Juul, tell their customers that after April 21st, I think is the date, they will no longer be taking orders online to ship to people's homes. So, and this is something we all talked about, that this idea of how silly it is, where you have the most smoking in the US in the populations, you rarely have access to a vape shop. So what you're doing is forcing these people to smoke again, because there's a gas station down the street for sure, or something else. If you're talking about a reservation, how many reservations actually have vapor shops on or nearby? But they certainly have cigarettes available on the reservation. It's unfortunate and pretty depressing, and hopefully there'll be some solution either from the business end. This seems like a pretty great opportunity for some business to just become, we ship vapes or whatever it is, or there'll be some legislative sanity down the line. We'll just have to hope. I think once we start seeing what I've argued is that this, by forcing USPS, FedEx, the others to no longer ship, you are actually making it easier for people, for criminals online, for illicit dealers of vapor products to ship to kids, because there will be more of them, because more even adults will start looking for some place that will ship. For someone, for example, who has low mobility and can't get to a vape shop or even go down the street to a gas station, there'll be more people online willing to just not tell USPS what's in the box. So it'll be easier, and definitely not checking ID.
Yeah, you would have to imagine that, entrepreneurs will find a way around this. This can't be very good at all for American vapors.
No, and obviously, of course, the law was predicated on the idea that youth are going onto Juul's website or something and getting vape shipped directly to their house, when that's not at all, no evidence that that's a primary or even substantial form in which youth are acquiring e-cigarettes. For the most part, they're going onto Facebook, onto Snapchat, getting it from someone at their high school. Social sources are the most popular means of getting it, or they're getting it from their parents, just like the way they used to get cigarettes, or they're stealing them. Who knows? But vapor mail was never really never really comprised a significant amount of vapes getting in the hands of children. Not to mention the fact that there are other ways that this could have been dealt with, other age verification methods. We live in a modern society. You can gamble online. You can get alcohol shipped to your house. You can look at pornography online. We have ways to gatekeep youth that are adequate enough that, as a society, we've decided this is better than trying to prohibit something for everybody. USPS, on down the line, all of the private carriers offer some sort of age verification. Now, the problem might be is that they don't actually do it, which is something, even though the vapor companies are paying extra money to somebody like FedEx to get that signature from the adult, to get you to look at their ID, they aren't doing it. And I know this because I've had alcohol shipped to my house a lot over the last year, and never once has my ID been checked. At least in one instance where the box literally said, "You must check ID." It was just dropped at my door with nobody at home, potentially. They didn't even knock to see if an adult was going to answer the door, at least look at my face and know I'm not a 13-year-old kid. So that might be the problem they're trying to get at, but then that's a problem with the shipping companies, not the vapor companies.
Right, and that could be a huge problem for them. And that is an excellent point, Michelle, that if they aren't doing it for all of the other products that they're supposed to be doing it for, because of laziness, it actually costs a lot of money. They see it as
COVID as well, perhaps.
COVID as well, and so forth. They might just see that the vaping issue is so hot politically, there's so many very incentivized kind of activists on the anti-vaping side that they recognize that politically it's too much of a business risk to carry vaping at all under these circumstances.
I mean, but they're still carrying alcohol, and I'm pretty sure you can still get cannabis shipped to your house in certain areas, and we have no problem with this. It's the laziest lawmaking I've seen in a long time, which is saying something, because especially in America, our lawmakers are nothing if not lazy.
And that was slipped into the budget omnibus bill, right?
That was slipped into the omnibus bill, so it was, page whatever 500,000 of the bill. But that had been discussed for a while. Frank Pallone, a representative from New Jersey, had been interested in doing something like this for a long time. It's just one of those splashy headline pieces of legislation that makes everybody feel really good. They don't actually think about the consequences to their constituents, to America, to the economy. We're talking about, isn't USPS in trouble? Don't they need business? And they're just giving up a huge business in the US.
Right. And so just to be clear then, Republicans own this legislation as much as the Democrats do.
Yes, absolutely. They could have stopped it. They could have tried to get it removed. I understand with the omnibus, there are a lot of other, people have bigger top line issues that they're concerned with. But unfortunately, this is what has always happened with vapor products as a political issue, is that it's nobody's top issue except for one crank, from New Jersey who has a bee in his bonnet about it. And so everyone else just says, well, I don't really care that much, so I'm not going to fight him on this. He'll vote for my thing later if I'll do this. And only, 2% of my constituents care about it, so I'm just going to let it slide. And that's how you end up in a situation where we have bananas, like a bananas combination of drug laws, where cannabis, you can get it on brownie form, gummy form, you can get cannabis pies, and you get it shipped to your house, and you can get liquor, whipped cream with liquor shipped to your house. But adults who are smokers, who have been using vapor products for years to stay smoke-free, are now being treated like the devil and forced to do the long march to wherever they can go to get whatever specific vapor product they want, which, I don't know if lawmakers even understand the just exuberant variety of devices and flavors, but also how specific people's tastes are and needs. That someone may like a device and a liquid or a couple of liquids and none other, and that liquid and that device is not available anywhere in their state. And that person is just out of luck now.
On a political history side, if anybody's ever heard the term line item veto, and that used to be a power that the president had, and it's now been taken away, that you kind of want that line item veto back, because then the president can just go through a budget bill and go, nah, not on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there was virtually no way that would be, because the budgeting process in the U.S. is always so contentious and such a pork fest, that as long as people get the pork they want in it, they're not going to fight really hard on anything, because they can just throw their hands up and say, we did what we could. What did you want us to do? Not give anybody COVID relief or have the government shut down? This is honestly what Democrats have been doing with cannabis for decades, is so many of their constituents have been saying, legalize it. And they're saying, well, these Republicans, we just can't seem to get it done, or we needed to do something better. Or what just recently happened was, well, Republicans actually supported a bill that would decriminalize cannabis. But it didn't explicitly have a tax for the federal government, and it didn't have requirements on, racial requirements on who can own a license to sell and all of this. So they're like, so we're just going to torpedo that one, even though it would have been a Band-Aid. But it would have stopped people from going to jail, which they say they care about. So, yes, Republicans deserve a significant portion of the blame for the situation that we're in.
Now, what about President Biden and his picks for HHS and FDA and so forth? I mean, are we seeing any bright light there, or is it dead silence, and is that worrying?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's really only one pick that's pretty bad for vapor, and I think generally for the public health issue overall, which is Xavier Becerra. He's a political creature. He's been in Congress for a while. He's a lawyer. He's no background in medicine, in public health, and he's very agenda driven. He seems to be able to use whatever platform he has for whatever specific agenda he has, not necessarily doing the job that he was put in there to do. And frankly, it's worrying to me because we all watched Biden when he was running, and Biden and many of them say, I'll follow the science, I'll follow the science, I'll follow the science. We trust the science, believe the science. Like, okay. And we just went through this big nightmare of COVID, still going through it, because our health systems were unprepared, because their priorities have been messed up for a really long time. Their resources have been going to the wrong things. And I was hoping Biden would, hoping against hope, that a politician would actually do what they promised to do on the campaign trail. And then you have one of his first suggested appointments is Xavier Becerra to HHS, one of our most important health agencies in the US. And he has no background in science. Republicans have been talking about all these other things. I think the main thing is that he has no background in health and hasn't really shown much of an interest in it in his career. He's a political creature and very problematic to me, not because of his positions, but the fact that he's agenda driven at all. I think in these positions, in these health and science positions, somebody really needs to at least pretend. At the very least, they really need to be committed to pretending to be objective and to not have an agenda. And that is not this person. The other nominees, the acting FDA director, I think is Janet Woodcock. I think she and you have Sharfstein and some other people. Most of them are just lifetime bureaucrats. And that's, we can work with that. They're not agenda driven. They're not ideological. As far as we know, they have no connections to Bloomberg, but you never know. It's really one of those, really just hope they're fairly objective when they get in. You could end up with what we had during the Trump administration with Gottlieb, or you had someone who come in saying all the great stuff, talking a really good game. And then almost the minute he gets in there, just 180s, and all of a sudden vapor products, maybe there are super dangerous epidemic that even though I said we're safer and could probably save lives, now I think they should probably be banned. So
yeah, I mean, if you're ever going to hope that an FDA commissioner is going to protect vaping, you just have to look at that moment in 2018 when then Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, lit the world's hair on fire over the epidemic, so-called epidemic of teen vaping, and that it posed a clear and present danger to youth. I mean, the industry is never going to recover from that.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it obviously will never, unless Gottlieb decides to write a tell-all. Honestly, I don't think we'll ever really know what happened there. But my theory is that these agencies have, they have appointees at the top. But for the most part, they are comprised of lifetime bureaucrats. And that's a machine with programs rolling and rolling. One guy coming in with a different viewpoint isn't necessarily going to be able to or want to derail programs and initiatives that have been in the works for years. I think that's what happened, is that epidemic was a plan that the FDA had for years in advance. And when Gottlieb came in, they're like, here's the data, because they'd been working towards this for a long time, and they had been planning out their advertising campaigns and their It's an Epidemic campaigns, which came out a week after Gottlieb made that announcement. He wasn't going to be the guy to be like, oh, all that stuff, all that money you spent, all that time you spent planning, we're not going to do that. So it just kept on rolling. And I think that's the way it always is. So yes, an appointee at the head of these agencies can materially affect the conversation and the policies. They can decide what to prioritize and not, what to ignore. But for the most part, I think problems, the goods and the bads, are all within those those nameless, faceless bureaucrats who've been there for 2 decades, 3 decades.
If you could give somebody, one person in the United States, Ebola, in order to help save the vaping industry, who would that person be?
I don't think I would do that to anybody. Oh. I don't like to wish ill on people. However, in my most vindictive moments, the worst that I can wish on someone is that they will live long enough to see their legacy destroyed and everything they worked for fail. There is one person I could name where I hope he lives to a ripe old age to watch everything he has worked for completely crumble under his feet.
Do tell.
I think you could guess.
Well, we'll leave the name. Has the person already retired, quasi-retired?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, forcibly, yeah.
Forcibly, right, exactly. I think we all know who that wonderful curmudgeon is. Well, Michelle, look, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, for the short piece on the U.S. and for the other appearances you've made around here. If you haven't seen yet the piece on Bloomberg, if it's not out yet, look for it soon. If it has been coming out, go to RegWatch and find the Bloomberg piece. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks for having me on.